When I look back and see that someone says, are you a marketing function? Are you passionate about marketing? Are you from telecom as a category? I don't have one real answer, but the real answer I do have is that I know that I've always stayed very close to where the consumer is, what value do I want to deliver to the consumer, and to that extent, I will do any and all stints that I need to do. ABG and scale is for me, and hence a platform of opportunity. Don't focus as much ki when will I move, how will I move. Focus on how do I deliver very well on what I'm delivering.
So starting off with the first question, for someone about to start their MBA, who already feels the pressure to have a perfectly mapped career path, you have described your growth as non-linear. You joined Idea Cellular through ABGLP and spent over 8 years there, starting in strategy and planning at the CEO's office in Hyderabad and eventually leading a national digital transformation project from Mumbai. That's unusual depth for someone early in their career at one company. What did staying and moving across functions within the same business build in you that jumping across companies every 2 years might not have?
Interesting, sure. So, if I may start with a caveat, guys, look, a lot of what I'll say today here may not make immediate sense to you, and the relevance may be varying across for each of you. All I'll request you to do is to not discard it right away, but just file it off away for later. Maybe some of these things will feel more real to you maybe in a couple of years, maybe in a couple of decades. For some of you, it depends on what life stages our own minds in each of these things. But the reason I'm giving that caveat upfront is that I think the important thing, and this is some wisdom that you gain after losing few year or a lot of hair, whatever it may be. But the fact is that it's very important to not let your career define your life, but instead make it the other way around. Your priorities have to be the other way around, and it is very, very real. And I'll tell you why. It's how is this relevant to this entire spiel around the time I spent at Idea, and what has it given me when I've moved. I was just as I was coming across today, I was just thinking of the last 22 odd years I've been working across different places, and uh, about 11 odd roles. That's an average of about a movement every 2 years on an average. But it's not been a movement every 2 years. Some roles I just bounced in 8, 9 months. It just happened that way. But some I've stayed stuck on for 5 years plus. What happens a lot of times is that a lot of dots actually in reality get connected in retrospect. So if I look at my roles at the telecom business itself, um, I did an EA role, a strategy planning role in a circle office. I was in service operations. I was in category marketing. Then I moved to being the EA for the managing director of the company. Then I moved into heading the digital, the brand on digital back in the day. And then I moved into being practically a product manager in the new age terms that we entirely redid the website and the mobile app, we built it. And then that's the breadth of roles. If I were to sit here and plan that today, or saying that prospectively what do I want to do in the next 10 years, it is out of question that I would have even imagined these choices. What does connect in retrospect when I having done all of that and I look back is that despite the non-linearity of these choices, what brings them all together for me is the zone of a couple of things that now realize I was very, very keen on and wanted to stay close to in that zone. There is no one line that I'm treading, that there's a zone, but I'm saying I'm okay with that zone is, have always been very, very passionate about consumers and consumer insights and marketing. So I've always tried to stay very close to that. And the other thing is understanding all the linkages in a business and what leads to what leads to what, and being able to connect those dots, because without that, I would be not be very effective in trying to deliver what I wanted to deliver to the consumer. And hence now, uh, there's some 7 or 8 categories that, or rather industries that I have seen in the last 20 odd years. Now, And hence, when I look back and see that someone says, are you a marketing function? Are you passionate about marketing? Are you from telecom as a category? I don't have one real answer, but the real answer I do have is that I know that I've always stayed very close to where the consumer is, what value do I want to deliver to the consumer, and to that extent, I will do any and all stints that I need to do. I mean, that's a slightly long winding answer, but sticking to that one company gave me enough perspective that in telecom, if I need to deliver value to a consumer, outrageous as it may sound, I had seen enough to be able to deliver that value.
Perfect, perfect. That I guess answers why you have got such a non-linear career. So you eventually became executive assistant to Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla. What surprised you most about how top leaders actually spend time?
Well, I can't generalize about entrepreneurs in general, but my experience with Mr. Birla has been that it's been obviously it was nothing like what I thought it would be, but in a very good way. Tremendous amount of focus on people has been absolutely mind-boggling for me as a learning. I can give you a lot of generic answers, but I'll just give you one instance. Within 2-3 months of me being in that role, we had just completed an acquisition of a very large cement company, and he said, okay, Uday, Lord, call in those 5 cement unit heads, and we need to do a review. I said, okay, great. And I'm like, I'm analytical, I'm very sharp, I know what to do. I drew out all the numbers, how was the plant performance, attrition, this, that, full jing bang. And then, those 5 people came in, and, and I'm in ES, so, they first met me and they said, okay, what will it be like with Mr. Birla? I said, look, you need to be on top of your numbers, this, that, and the other. And then we go into the room and we spent 2 hours with Mr. Birla, zero numbers. It was for him all about the next 2 hours was about how are they doing, how are the people doing, are they feeling comfortable, do they know that even if those employees in the company that we had acquired were with that company for the last 5 years, from the day they come into ABG, their superannuation, everything is tagged as their 5-year-old ABG employees. Have they understood what the group is about, what the values are about? Are they feeling comfortable? They need to know that they don't need to worry about the fact that they've got acquired, will they get laid off, what will happen. For the next one, I couldn't believe that there could be a 1.5 hour conversation about people. And it was a tremendous amount of learning for me to say that where should the focus lie? And how does this man think? And and it's been a great ride. Of course, there have been conversations where all we talked about was numbers, of course. Someone has to pay the bills. But the fact that it's very sharp and clear that where does that competitive advantage for a company or a group come from, and what do you focus on first, has been a tremendous learning. A lot of learnings, but I think that stayed with me for a long time.
Now, after seeing management education from both sides, student and an institution builder, what do MBA students overestimate and what do they completely underestimate?
I could do a 6 hour session on this. It's a very passionate subject for me because education is a very passionate subject for me, and trust me, there are no two sides. There are some like 18 sides to being
I
in
think
higher
everyone will
education.
be
I assure you,
excited to know
there is
all
students,
about it.
there is recruiters, there is professors. There is tons of things to do there. There is land to be acquired to build a business school. Tons of things to be done. But I tell you where it's coming from. It's coming from the position of institution building. That's been a very important thing, and it's crazy where inspiration comes from. When GD Birla went to the US, I'm talking about like around about the time we got independence, when everyone probably else was thinking about no God knows what, but he went and told MIT that, look, I want to build something that's like grade A in the world, and he built BITS Pilani, and from that day till date, this is probably one of the, arguably the only schools which has almost like a 12-month out of campus internship program. Those of you who are probably have had your brush with BITS Pilani know that when you have that kind of inspiration for a legacy, and uh, and that's part A. Part B is, if I also look back and see what dots connect for me, the way I've worked, and why is this like crazy, zigzag lines across in my career happen, is the biggest thing that matters to me personally is purpose and impact. Like, okay, when I get into a role, I've not known much in any of the roles I've gotten into, because I just like got para-dropped into categories, industries, teams where people have had as much experience just being in this industry as the entire experience that I've had, or they're older than me. So you just go in with a lot of humility and say you want to learn, etc., etc. But then what keeps you there is the fact that I have always been clear that, look, if you have taken up a role, if I've been given a responsibility, you want to leave it a better place than what you got it, how you got it. For me, management education was also an exercise in that. While there is always an institutional view to it, for me, it was also a very big personal project that, we always sit, we do a lot of armchair, kite flying, saying that, अरे ये होता है, वैसा होता है, अगर मेरे हाथ में होता तो ऐसा करते. When we're sitting and doing the strategy, Mr. Birla happens to be the chancellor for BITS Pilani, and I just happened to be the right place, right time, where that was one of the things that I was overseeing with him. And he said that we want to grow this. How do we grow this? It's a not-for-profit. It's doing well. We have 4 campuses, 16,000 students. We don't want to become another engineering churner, engineer churner kind of a place. What do we do? And we did a study, and we said that, look, if you look at the top 2 percentile of CAT takers, which is like probably creme de la creme de la creme de la creme of the country, it's some 9,000 students when we're doing this project. And we said that if you take the top 10 odd schools, there's 2,000, 3,000 odd seats. Where are these 5,000 students going? What are they doing? Where do they have to go in the country to go and do a great program? And that drove the thought, and we said that, okay, look, and then there were a bunch of us who were like, okay, we are all from this fancy IIM, this, that, and the other, from ABGLP program. But there's a lot of inherent uh, understanding of how this ecosystem works, what's working for students, what's not working for students. And that drove the thought behind Bitsom, and and hence, how do you build that? What do you really, what do students really need care? So from day one, for example, to answer then to your question very precisely, we said from day one there'll be mentors. And we said that, I've personally sat and pitched to everyone and anyone I knew, friends from banking to consulting to FMCG to everyone, saying that, I need you to mentor 2 students at Bitsom. Those kind of fundamental legacy, institutionalized learning is what we try to build. Of course, it takes a lot. I mean, it's almost like it's like I can say it at my age. It's my kid's 16th birthday today. It's like, you try to do something, and then beyond a point, you have to let go of it. Building Bitson has been an exercise like that. We built in a lot of good things into it. Now we hope that it's being taken forward. But the insights you've had as a B school student, that you are at sea. You don't know. You don't know what's really happening out there. Most of the employers are trying to just throw bait at you and trying and hiring. But who's there to really mentor you and walk you through with the journey and say that, look, this is what matters, this doesn't matter, and so on. So a lot of these things have got built into the school.
So, as a 25-year-old MBA student, I'm not like people who are younger or older to it, just a generic audience age group. To 25-year-old MBA student, the scale is really hard to comprehend. Like, in plain terms, not the brochure version. What does joining ABG actually mean for your career? What does the group do to you over 10 years that a single sector company doesn't? Like, what are the expectations from the leaders at ABG?
Okay, great question. First of all, I'd also like to flip it back and say, for me at least, it's not just what does the group do to you, what you do to the group is what matters really. That's what we've done, really a lot of us have done who've been around here for more than a decade and a half and so on. We believe we are part of what ABG is today, is a result also of what we've stood there and contributed to. Having said that, I'm a little unpopular with the YTM team here because I don't necessarily, I don't understand in retrospect what is Genman really. While I'm a very hardcore proponent of the program, I've been here because I was a TAS fan, I was an ABGLP fan, etc. Back when I was in the B school, and this is like the only company I walked into the finals and checked out. I didn't do anything else. So, and this is like a flagship Genman program, right? But in reality, Genman kicks in probably, I don't know, at least 5, 7, 8 years after you start working, right? I mean, what is general management? When you are walking in, you are a functional expert. You are either in marketing, or you're in sales, or you're in operations, you are in finance, you're doing something very core. And you are working for a particular company. You are working for fashion retail, or you're working for carbon black, or you're working for advanced chemicals, or you're working for mutual fund. You're doing something specific. ABG and scale is, for me, and hence, a platform of opportunity. So on day one, I would focus on 2 things if I were in your place. Why would I want to get into this, right? One is not get overwhelmed by all of this, jingbang, which is all true. It is all there, like this 41 companies in 36 countries, and it'll keep growing and so on and so forth. We've had And there's a big debate on what's a quote-unquote startup. But we've had 6 in the last 3 years in front of me, and we're all doing exciting work apart from all the legacy companies that have been there. But what's the point of all of this as far as a student today who's or a candidate, potential candidate who can join the program and the group is concerned is just don't 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 bother about whether you got the answer right or wrong on how many countries, how many companies, and so on. It's a platform of opportunities. How do you get access to that? First, what's your foot in the door? A program like this, you have to get in. The second and the real and more important thing is performance. You get in, you have to perform, because ultimately, what you're working for is the mother brand, but also it's your manager, right? You have to be very, very focused and clear that when I walk in, okay, here's my purpose, here's the group purpose, this is what I want to work on. But as far as I'm concerned, on day one and on whatever day one of the third year and day one of the seventh year, the role I am in, am I really doing a stellar job at that? And if I'm doing that, that's when we call it AWO at ABG. It's a world of opportunities. That's what kicks in then. How did I, for example, and there are, I mean, you'll meet a bunch of colleagues and friends who are here and who will talk to you, and my colleagues from my batch. There are people who've been in the same company in, let's say, 8 different roles, and the people who've moved 6 companies or 3 companies in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or even in like people who are already onto their second stint in the 4th year or 5th year. Bottom line, don't focus as much ki when will I move, how will I move. Focus on how do I deliver very well on what I'm delivering. That is what creates your equity. The reason I would like to believe I have got opportunities is because someone was watching when I was not bothered about who's watching me, and I was doing my job, and someone said, hey, you know what, इसको पता नहीं है कि ये कैटेगरी आती है कि नहीं, ले लो उधर काम कर लेता है. So then you get in there and then you learn on the job and then you deliver. But what you need to really build is equity. And I think that's the biggest thing about this whole program, and that's how I would decode ABG and ABG LP as a program, is to not get too hassled about how many categories, companies, etc. But say that yes, it's a platform. Yes, it's available to me. Let me get in there. Let me get into a couple of good roles. Build my equity in the first few years. Then I know there will be a set of people who will be very excited. I mean, I didn't. This role with Mr. Birla doesn't come by applying. I had no clue. I was sitting very happily one day. My boss was trying to do my job, and someone calls me and says, "Acha, why don't you just take this role?" And I'm like, but I had great plans. I was so excited. I was working on Martech. That was the next big thing. I was like fully charged working with Meta and Adobe and whatnot. They said, come and work with Mr. Birla. I said, okay, let's go and try and do that. So, but opportunities will come your way. You just need to apply yourself on what you're doing on that day.
Basically, in a conglomerate where businesses are diverse, how important is collaboration versus individual brilliance? Like, what does collaboration actually look like in ABG?
This sounds like a planted question to me. Is this a planted question, guys? It's a no-brainer. It is collaboration, right? I mean, of course, individual application is very important, right? I mean, of course, you are measured, rated, etc. at the end of the year, but you can't deliver shit without being part of the team, right? I mean, it's always going to be a team effort at the end of the day. Everyone knows that. It's extremely critical. In fact, we have these 5 values that are there, and one of the most important value, which is the most dearest to me, is seamlessness. Integrity, passion, commitment, seamlessness, and speed. These are 5 group values, and seamlessness is probably the one closest to my heart, because especially for someone like me who's quite clear and confident that I have zero technical capabilities, skills, etc. I'm always relying on my team. You just need to be able to go in there, work with teams, collaborate, and there's these 3 broad things, right, in a framework scheme of things. When you're starting in your career, first 5 or 7 odd years, fundamentally what you're being judged on, what you're rated on, what you're growing on, building your equity on is your delivery, your personal execution and delivery. The next 4, 5, 7 odd years in the middle of your career, what you're really doing is your equity is built on, you're measured on your ability to influence in all directions. A lot more sideways, downward to ho hi jata hai, matlab teams will listen to you. Are you able to influence sideways and a little bit topwards? And then finally you are really rewarded and you're measured for your judgment, your decision making. That middle part, and somewhere in between on that border is where you'll all land as leadership candidates, and your ability to influence through collaborative means is an extremely critical capability that you'll all have to build. You'll see that, you would have seen that as part of your college committees and so on, and it's there all around.
So since you mentioned collaboration, so
You did.
think back to two young professionals who started their careers under you, and one who completely exceeded your expectations and one who fell short. So like looking past their resumes, what was the defining trait that separated the two?
Let me summarize it into this thing called. I might summarize it into this thing called maybe growth mindset. Even if it's not like a very sharply defined term, it basically kind of encompasses two three things: your potential, your ability to, and willingness to, really more than ability, your willingness to keep learning and improving and applying and risking and failing and then coming back. I think that's growth mindset. I think that matters a lot. I think someone who probably didn't know much on day one but didn't bother about the fact that they did not know enough on day one. She came back, she said, okay, I'm ready to learn, I'm ready to apply, I'll take a couple of risks, ठीक है देखा जाएगा. I think that willingness rather than entitlement, I think mattered a lot. I think people who think that boss, abhi to I'm here so I should be good. No, you're as good as your delivery. So I think that willingness to, that's growth mindset.
Yeah, so before coming to the last question, does anyone of you guys have questions for Uday before he gives advice to you guys who's joining the campus? So, yeah.
Hello, good evening,
Hi,
sir.
good evening. Uday.
Good evening, Udai. My name is Mahima Pradhan. I'm about to join IIM Calcutta. In case there isn't such an established program in my college, how do you think we can make mentors who are well established in their fields for consulting, Gen Man, anything of that sort? Thank you.
Yeah, hi Mahima. I think that's a great question. You may please sit. I think, it's all about, your initiative, guys. I think, वो कोई तो spoon feeding करेगा नहीं. So I think, if the institute doesn't necessarily have a program like that, by the way, C has a very, very loyal alum. Yeah, I don't know how they do that, but they do it very well. I think use LinkedIn, whatever ping. I think there are a lot of people out there who are very, very passionate about developing talent, capability, and I've discovered this is so true. A lot of jobs get closed even before they're posted because someone knows someone who's great at what they're looking for, etc.
Now you
Networking is
guys
very,
know
very
Uday, so
critical.
you can also close jobs before it's getting posted.
Yeah.
Devi Jalpi.
So sorry, but yeah, I think just cold call, just like shamelessly cold call like 50 people. 10 people will probably see, 3 will think of replying, 1 will reply. That's all that you need.
Hi Uday.
Hi, good evening.
I've been working for 2.5 years now and I'm joining NMIMS Mumbai this year. So I had a question, right? What you talked about was building equity. Basically being very good at your job and then the opportunities come to you. But traditionally it has also been noticed somehow that if you are sometimes too good at your job, they don't give you different positions because talking very candidly, ये accounting में अच्छा है, इसको accounting में ही रखो. Then that guy becomes like a 50-year-old and he's still in the accounting department, right? So how did you change departments or that tap on the shoulder which you got, how did you manage to get there?
Being indisposable is a bad way to do a job. Okay. The best in class, and I've seen those people in ABG, and I'm talking about Rohit guys, if you see, oh my God, they are probably doing what's on their goal sheet 30% of the time. That's it. वो तो अलग बात है कि they're probably too brilliant and that's enough for them. But then what are they doing the rest 70% of the time? Of the rest, I don't take this very quantitatively as a correct answer, but I'm saying that directionally, the rest of the time, half the time, they are actually doing, going and asking their boss, what can I do that you do? What can I help you to do? Okay. And the rest 30%, they're actually developing talent across their organization. They're walking in into their skip levels, skip -3, skip -4, and developing talent across. What this is doing really is that, and this is a very important thing that I learned a couple of years later than I should have at least, is you have to start doing your next job before you get it. It's a very, very important principle. If you think you're going to do something after you get the title, you're already late for it. Because someone's picking someone for the job because they've seen them and said, you know, he does this well, let's just take him. Not maybe he will do it well, let us take it. The traits are there. Knowledge is like today, though, is even more commoditized. It's all there out there in all kinds of AI platforms. So if you think doing a great job is just doing what you have signed up to do, you're already underperforming. So I think that's the first principle. You after and I've tried to broadly in my again a lot of this is in retrospect, guys. My deduction of how I saw myself when I looked back and someone came and asked me, "Arey, ye role se nikalna to mushkil ho raha hai. How did you do that?" Is when I saw and I realized that oh, this is what I did. I spent a year and a half, one and a half cycles of doing the same thing, just trying to do a good job. Then I tried to do another cycle and a half. ये तो हो गया ना अब. Now a lot of this is on auto mode. वो सब एक्सेल में कनेक्ट कर दिए, वो सब फ्लो हो रहा है, डेटा वो सब चल रहा है लाइफ में. Then I'm trying and doing a project for someone else in the organization, saying that hey, you know what, I'm excited about this. Who doesn't like free hands? रात में कर लिया, weekend पे कर लिया, then I'm doing. And the last third, almost, I'm trying to figure out where can I go if I get out of it while parallelly preparing. And I've surprised my managers at least a couple of times now. They said, अच्छा ठीक है, replacement लाके दे दो, मैं तुमको छोड़ दूंगा. They thought they're going to take. I said, here they are. Because I'd already identified who he was. I had sold that job to them. And they were very excited about coming in. I was out, they were in. You have to figure this out. No one's going to come and, you know, कोई आपको कोई उतर के आके कुछ देने नहीं वाला है. So that is, you have to become indisposable and you have to figure your shit out.
So, okay, second last question, and then we'll move to the closing question. So, in a world where students are evaluating startups, consulting, and tech, what is one thing ABG and offers that is unique or different to replicate anywhere else?
Giving a comparative answer would have needed me to be in 5 different companies in these last 20 years. I have not been. So let me not give you a comparative answer, but tell you what I have experienced. Okay. I think your first 2 jobs matter a lot in terms of who you turn out to be as a professional for a long time later, unless there is a big black swan event and your fundamentals reset. For me, what I learned in both these places, in that first job and later post my MBA, I've been here all my life in different companies within the group, is it is very, very important to make your team and the people around you feel respected. I've felt that in the field in a sales job where there was tremendous pressure, and I felt that in a boardroom with Mr. Birla where I am like 35 or infinity job bands below him, and he looks at you with there is an MD in the room, there is someone in the room, and there's someone else's uncle in the room. Looks at you and says, "What do you think, Udai?" And like me, okay. I really don't know what I think, but because he's asked me, I have to tell him something. It's very important to, I think, feel that there is a mutual thing going on here. It's not a one-way thing. Of course, money is important. There's no doubt, right? You need to, you know, buy random shit on Amazon and so on and so forth, right? But you realize that despite that, every morning when you wake up, if you're not feeling like getting yourself to that virtual or real workplace, there's something wrong going on there. I have luckily, because of that, A, because, and B, I use it in my head like, are you able to sleep peacefully and wake up restfully? Most of the days, that has not been a challenge. Very soft answer maybe, but you know, it's while there's been a lot, I continue, this current role also continues to be a lot of stress and so on. But I think I've myself worked on 3 new ventures in the last 5 years, excluding the one I am now leading and building. So there's a lot of excitement going on, and I very much envy my colleagues who are in Ultratech and Hindalco and taking away very big variable pay because they are generating a lot of cash. I am yet to. I am going and fighting for my loss funding every day. So all of that's happening, but I think you feel respected and you feel there is a lot of room for you to, space for you to be who you are.
Okay, so we'll just summarize the session in one line. What's one thing young professionals, ambitious people chase too hard and like realize too late?
Yeah, and again, you know, I think everyone needs to make their own mistake. None of you is going to learn from my mistakes. But uh, I think money and title, it's a little मुश्किल है वो अभी नहीं समझ में आएगा. But I think in time we all realize that as I said, you do need your money. It's important, but it's don't go too hard after it. for the simple reason you'll compromise on a lot of things which you'll realize later that, oh, I did not go after the right things.
So we are wrapping up the session. You
There's
can
others
meet
waiting
Udai,
to talk.
after and you can connect with him. Okay. Thank you so much. Give a round of
Thank you.
applause. Thank you.